Welcome back, I guess, to Mast Cast. That's former NASCAR Cup Series driver Rick Mast, 9-time winner on the Xfinity Series, among other things. I'm his non-driving son, Ricky Mast, and Dad, I'll just start with a question.
Okay.
Where the hell we been for the last 5 years?
I don't know. When did we do this last, Ricky? When was this?
About
Was it
your
during
20.
COVID? Was it during COVID?
We did one during the early on in the shutdown in COVID, and that may have been the last one. So yeah, maybe 6 years actually. Where the hell we been the last 6 years, I guess is the right question.
Yeah, okay, 6 years. Well, we started Mast Cast, 6 years ago, and then you got busy with the Braves. I got busy with my businesses, and we just kind of let it go. And then, all the stuff that's been going on in the world via NASCAR, we decided we got to do this again, man. So here we are.
We're here again, and we're on Kenny Wallace Media this go around, which we're really excited about. So we'll be here pretty much every week, I think, as long as we can both make it. Lord willing, and was it Lord willing and the creek don't rise? God willing, the creek don't rise. Either or,
either
right?
one.
God willing. Okay. Yeah, that's the plan. So we're really excited about that. We'll be talking all things NASCAR and probably sharing a lot of old stories. Eventually we'll get some of your old buddies on here as guests when we can. And we're just going to have fun with it. I think, again, a lot of old stories, but also just talking about what's going on in the news. And it seems, there's always news in the NASCAR world, but it seems like there's been as much news in the NASCAR world this past year and these past few months as anything. Before we get into NASCAR real quick, I will just share with you what's been going on here around my house for the last almost week now. So I'm in Georgia. I'm in the Atlanta area, a little north of the city, but down here in the Atlanta area. So about a week ago, we started hearing rumblings that this ice storm of death is on its way. It's inbound. You're going to be stuck at your house. You're not going to have power for multiple days. Just say goodbye to your loved ones, have your affairs in order, all that good stuff. Now, I've been through many a storm in my day, mostly when I was still living back home in Virginia with you. And I always could count on you because you'd have a generator, whatever. Even when my house was out of power, I could just come to your house and hang there, and it was all good. And then even since then, when I've been on my own, like in apartments or whatever, I'm not too worried about it. Usually you're not going to lose power or anything like that in your apartment. But, I got married a couple years ago, and now I've got a little girl, your first grandchild, my first child, obviously, but for one of those, the first of those to be true, the latter would have to be true. And we've bought a house about a year and a half ago out here in the burbs. This is my first experience of being the man of the house with possible ice storm of death on the way, no power for multiple days, stuck in your home for multiple days. So I went out and I joined what turned out to be a fair number of other folks here in the Atlanta area freaking out looking for generators. I waited a day too late. First day I started checking, there were generators everywhere, Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever. I waited till the next day. That was a mistake. All of a sudden I wake up the next morning, they're gone. So now I'm going all over town with Stevie, my 21-month-old, in the back seat, store to store, looking for a generator. Finally find a store, get a generator. The one that they were supposed to have in stock was gone when I got there. I bought the one they had left, which cost twice as much. Now I just bought this generator, and I'm not mechanically minded like you, as you well know. But I just buy this generator, and then I get it home, like, okay, I got the generator. Oh, wait, I can't let the generator get wet, but it's got to sit outside. I don't have anything to cover, any covered area outside. So then I go and buy a tent for the generator. And then I got to go buy gas cans for the generator. And then I start doing research on, hooking my fridge and everything up this generator. And it's like, well, I don't have the right extension cords. So I go all over town looking for extension cords for this generator. And then they're talking about carbon monoxide in the house. Got to be careful. I'm like, let me go buy a carbon monoxide detector. So the end result is I spent about $1,500 to watch a tent in my driveway get a little wet with no ice.
Why do you just put it underneath your deck?
It's too close to the house. Carbon monoxide gonna kill us all. That's what it said.
It didn't kill me. It ended my career, but it didn't kill me. Right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, anyways, that's what's been going on around here, around my house. So, all of that to say.
Well, we did the same thing, Ricky. I got my generators running, and tractors and snow plows and blowers, all that stuff fired up, and put them all used today. We're good to go again.
There you are. Well, let's get right into the NASCAR stuff. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. So I'll start with there's so many things to talk about. Obviously, we haven't been around in a while, and it's still the off season, but we're getting geared up for the season as we're recording this. Bowman Gray, the Clash is going to be Sunday. We hope that the weather there. I saw pictures of Bowman Gray today covered in snow, but hopefully that all works out. But most recently, the Hall of Fame induction last weekend, Harry Gant, Kurt Busch, Ray Hendrick, and you got asked to go down there and speak on I guess what they call it, a fireside chat or like a panel discussion.
Yeah.
So we watched, my wife and daughter and I watched here. We watched live on the NASCAR channel. You did awesome. So they had 3 panels, one for each inductee, and you were on the last one for Harry Gant. So your buddy Kyle Petty was the moderator of each of them. And on your panel, it was Harry Gant, obviously, Andy Petrie, his longtime crew chief, and you. You did awesome, told some funny Harry stories. You probably could have sat there for a couple of hours and told funny Harry stories, but just how was that whole experience? How did it come about and how was it?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I went down in, I don't know, last fall, October, excuse me, maybe November, laid some video tracks down and they used those for Harry and did some for Deb Williams. They honored Deb Williams. We laid some stuff down for her, and then we go back for this deal. And it's I hadn't been before. I had opportunity half a dozen times to go to the event and I never did it, but I went this time really based on Harry going in. I want to be there with my buddy, but real neat, man. It's they really do a good job putting that thing on. I mean, what you see on TV really doesn't do justice. Maybe, I don't know the number, maybe 500, 750 people. I don't know how many people's in this big place, but a lot of people. And the neat part, fans could buy tickets to go in, right? So it wasn't just all the industry. It was actually fans in there, dressed to the hilts and, eating fancy dinners and getting to see everybody. But for me, it was, it's like every time I go to the racetrack or anything, I get reconnected with everybody, right? Saw Mr. Hendrick, talked to Mr. Hendrick, talked to Mr. Penske and Mr. Kennedy and all the NASCAR hierarchy and just, drivers and crew guys and a lot of guys you haven't seen, some guys you do see. And, it's just a real neat event, man. It's a real neat event. And, the alumni group, see my hat? What's that say right there? Alumni. We got that in mail, all of us alumni guys, here a week or two ago, I think. A lot of the alumni guys were there, right? I don't know, just a neat deal, Ricky. Very neat deal.
I'm glad you touched on the alumni thing. So the NASCAR alumni program is maybe a couple years old now.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of speaking for me, I'm biased because, you're involved with it. You're heavily involved with it. I think it's one of the coolest and best things they've done in a while, and it's a great way to get former guys really officially back into the fold. Ones that maybe aren't officially in the fold, it's a great way to welcome them back. I see it with the Braves, what Greg McMichael does with the alumni program, and it's just wonderful. So it's great that NASCAR has done that.
Yeah, and to give it to interrupt you for a second, it kind of goes back to all the things that's going on with NASCAR right now. A couple years ago, I guess, I don't know what caused it, but Jim France says, man, we got to take care of these people that were in our sport forever, right? We need to do something. And that's when it started. That was the directive given down through the chain of command, and everybody within the organization, agreed this was a great idea, and they started the process. They got, Amber Wells and Wendy and those guys, they do a great job with it. And, we keep adding to it all the time. I have guys call me. I had a driver call me the other day. I'm not sure who it was. How we do that alumni deal, Rick? Right. So I put him in touch with those guys, and another one joined. So it's a neat deal, man. It connects the past to the future, or connects the past to the present.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah, Amber, I've gotten a chance to meet with her, like you and I are doing over online, just to talk shop, and it was great to get to know her, and really great. I'm hoping. Are you going to go to Darlington Alumni Weekend this year?
Oh yeah, I got to this year. I missed it last year for one of your deals. Somebody's.
It was.
What was it?
It was your granddaughter / my daughter's first birthday.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah.
So
and I caught hell for not being down there with those guys too. So I made a promise. I will definitely be there for that this year. Oh yeah.
Well, thankfully they moved. Yeah, the race doesn't conflict with Stevie's birthday this year. So I
Yeah.
just floated the idea actually with my wife the other day of us going to alumni weekend. She said, "Well, we do have a baby." I was like, "Well, we also have some grandmothers, so you never know." But we'll see.
Ricky, you went to the racetrack when you were 2 weeks old, sitting in the grandstands, huddled up with your mom. 2 weeks
Where
old,
was
dude.
was it? Franklin
Franklin
County?
County. It was Franklin County Speedway. That was a $25,000 deal. Yeah, yeah, that was the big
Oh,
deal.
that was the summer of the $25,000 deal.
That's
Oh,
right.
I didn't
That's
realize.
right.
I guess it
Oh yeah,
was.
yeah. In
Well, for
fact, your
folks,
mom, we had a Busch Grand National race in Greenville Pickens week before you were born. Your mom drove by herself with by Score Virgie from Virginia to Greenville, South Carolina, 1 week before you were born, right? And then 2 weeks after you were born, you're up in the grandstands 3 weeks later watching the races. So, but anyhow, times were different then.
I was just picture mom being 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant, basically driving from Virginia to Greenville Pickett. So from Virginia to South Carolina for a race and driving back. Yeah, I'd say times were definitely
Yeah, yeah.
definitely different. Well, just so people understand what we mentioned, we called it the $25,000 deal at Franklin County. Tell that story real quick, just so folks know what that's at.
We were actually going to a race in 83 to Hickory, a bush race. The truck broke down on 81 in Roanoke. By the time we got it fixed, we weren't going to get to Hickory in time for the race. So one of my crew members had the local paper and it had a ad in there, Franklin County Speedway, 100-lap race, 3,500 to win. So we go, well, let's go down there because only 20 minutes away. We go down and we do that deal. And the promoter put up a deal for if you 3 100-lap races in a row or one each month, 100-lap race each month. If you could win those 3 races, you had a $25,000 bonus, right? So we did all that. And then Humpy Wheeler, the PT Barnum Bailey not Humpy Wheeler, but Humpy Wheeler's protege, you might say, Whitey.
Eddie Taylor.
Yeah, good Lord of mercy. We'll do a whole episode on that dude one day. But anyhow, he did all that. We did all that, won the races, did everything. I still got the $25,000 check, non-sufficient funds. But he did, in all honesty, he did spend the next year and a half coming to my shop in Lexington and he'd bring money bags of 5s and 10s and 20s. He ended up paying like $12,400 of it, right? So I actually used that money to buy my first super speedway car. I bought the chassis from Banjo Matthews, and then Robert G put the body on it. So that really enabled me to go super speedway races. So it all worked out.
So you broke down. Talk about how times have changed. You're going to a Busch Grand National Series race, which more current fans or maybe more recent fans to NASCAR would know as the Xfinity Series, and now it's going to be the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. You and I have talked about this. I got to be honest. I love that O'Reilly Auto Parts is a sponsor. I'm going to have a hard time saying that full name a lot, so
yeah,
I might just. I've always just wanted to call it the Busch Series anyway. So for Mast Cast for now, I might just keep calling it the Busch Series.
Okay.
Or you had some other like the ORP series or something.
Yeah, I think it's already ORP. I think if
Okay.
you look at the NASCAR official schedules and stuff, the ORP series.
Okay,
ORP,
well, I can get on board with that.
NASCAR, whatever it is. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's more. That's more
ORP. We can do our ORP. We can do
that's
that.
Fine.
Yeah,
okay. The ORP series. So
yeah,
it's funny though. You're breaking down. You're headed to an ORP series race, and you break down. It's like, well, I'll just take this exact same car and run it at the local late model race. Which just think about now. If you got your ORP car, you're on the way to race. You'll break down. No, we can just enter. We'll just enter the super late model race at South Boston or wherever we happen to be. So, yeah, the times have changed. So you ended up winning 3 of those. Won a bad $25,000 check, and one of those races in the midst of that was my first race, huh?
Yeah. I don't remember which one it was, but you were 2 weeks old. I remember that much.
Okay. Well, it would have been the one on would have been in July then. So I was born in July.
Okay.
There you go. July of 1983.
Yeah.
There are some old news clippings and stuff of that whole deal. There's one in particular that I think is really cool. The Roanoke Times did I don't think it was a helicopter shot. Maybe there's a mountain or a hillside or something nearby. It's been a long time since I've been in Franklin County, so I don't remember, but somebody took a high up picture of the line of cars that were lined up to get into that racetrack when you're going for the 3rd one in a row. So, well, much like Humpy, Whitey knew how to get people out there. So it all.
Yeah, that was the biggest crowd. That's the biggest crowd they ever had at that racetrack before or since.
Sure.
In
for
fact, they
sure.
thought they were going to beat. He was going to do a Willie Nelson concert like a month after this, and he didn't have a real good rapport with the local officials, okay, the county officials, but anyhow they shut the concert down because Willie would bring a liquor bottle out on the stage or whatever, or beer or drink, sometimes supposedly. And the sheriff of the county said if that band brings a liquor bottle out on the stage, he's going to get arrested. So the Willie Nelson concert got canceled. So they were hoping that was going to break the record for attendance of the Rick Mast show or the Rick Mast deal, but never happened. Uh, uh,
Well, Willie's still around, so it's
he is still
you never know.
around. He is.
He could still break it. You just never know. Me and your daughters, my sisters, actually saw Willie here in concert about 2 years ago. He's still kicking. Still sounds great. Um, well, all right. The Hall of Fame trip. I got to ask, how was like? I'm sure it's been a little bit since you'd seen Harry. Looking at him on TV, of course, they still call him Handsome Harry, and he's on TV. And I looked at my wife. I was like, "How old do you think he is?" And she's like, "Well, I know he's been retired for a while, so I'm guessing, I don't know, 70s, something like that." So she was using some data she knew, and plus I was asking the question the way she knew. She knew I was going to say, "Well, it's
Tricky.
different than
Yeah.
what you would think."
Right.
Man's 86 years old, and I swear to
Right.
God, he looked, at least on TV, he looks pretty much not too different from how he did when he retired. He looks great. So how was he?
He's great, man. Harry's like Rich. I kidded Harry a couple times a year or two ago about hair color. I said, Harry, what kind of hair color do you use? I don't use any hair color. I said, well, yeah, you do because you don't have any gray hair. That's all natural, Rick. I don't use no. Swore up and down he didn't use hair color, and probably right. I had the same conversation with the king, Richard Petty, right? What about your hair color? I don't use any hair color, Rick, right? And the king's up there too. But Harry was always he was such a physical specimen, man. You know what I mean? Just chiseled and just nothing but muscle and, good looks. And he, I don't know if it's whatever the deal is. What he thinks or what he tells or what he says that one of the things that's helped him, he thinks, live like this and look like this.
No,
He had
hit
back
me.
problems in the 90s, and
Okay.
he bought him one of those boards that you get on and you hook your feet and turn yourself upside down. He lays, he flips himself up and lays on this board hanging down, right? And I remember in the 90s him telling me that it really helped his back. Well, he made a statement down there around the alumni weekend about that board and still doing it, and he thinks that's what's made him be real physical fit, right? But for Harry, that's good. If that's what Harry believes, and the more power to him. But gosh, Harry, you walk up to Harry, you look at him like, I'm not sure if I would want to fight this guy right now, right? And you think, yeah, he's 68, 69 years old, maybe, and to be 86 years old, look the way he does. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, man. Pretty
Maybe
remarkable.
the board is what's keeping the gray hairs away too.
It might
Stop the
be.
gray
It might
from it.
be.
I will. This true story. When I asked my wife Laura, how old do you think that man is? I swear to God, Dad, this is true. First words out of her mouth were, "Well, he obviously dyes his hair."
Yeah.
Like that was
Yeah.
I swear to you, that's the first thing
Right.
she said, and I was like, I didn't say
Right.
anything, but I'm like, I'm willing to bet that if that he says he doesn't, and maybe
Yeah.
he does, because I know from what you've said, Richard Petty says he doesn't, and maybe he
Right.
doesn't. They're
Right.
both on up there in their 80s and look great. So
Yeah,
that's great.
they're freaks. Both of those guys are freaks of nature. I can tell you that. So I guarantee you they don't use hair dye.
Well, I want you to tell this story because you told it during the fireside chat, and it was so funny. And for people who didn't get to hear that, before we move on from Harry and the Hall of Fame weekend,
Okay.
tell the story of the hooligan race and Harry's mindset going into turn 3.
For everybody who didn't get to hear this, it got a good response at the banquet. But anyhow, I don't know. Sometime in the early '90s, Charlotte went through this deal where for a couple of years we had to. They would qualify all the Busch Grand National cars, and there's always more cars there that could make the field, right? And they would qualify. Everybody qualified. They take the top 20 or 25. I'm not sure, and that would set your starting position. Everybody else then had to run a race. Okay, the race. And as I tell people, that race reminded me of a green-white checkered at Talladega or Daytona. I mean, it's like, you know, a lot of wreckers in that race, man, because everybody's trying to
It's
get in the race.
like a last chance race, right? To
Yeah, it's
make
a
the
last
show.
chance race, but that's how it sets the rest of the field, right? So everybody's trying to get in that thing, and if you didn't have more cars than you had start positions, it probably wouldn't have been as dangerous or crash fested. But you had a lot of guys that trying to make a field too. So anyhow, over a period of time, the thing it just became the hooligan race. We call it the hooligan race, and you didn't want to run that damn hooligan race, man. Whatever you did, you did. So anyhow, we'd all qualified, and I'd got in pretty good. And when qualifying was over, I went up to Harry and I was talking to Harry. I said, "How'd you lap, Harry?" He said, "Let me tell you what I did, Rick." I said, "All right." He said, "I took the green flag and I went down in 1 and 2, held it wide open, and you could go through 1 and 2 wide open those days still, even like they're doing today with a Busch car if your car was decent. 3 and 4 is different. The configuration, the grip level's a little different. The bumps, it's real hard to get through 3 and 4 wide open. It was then. So Harry said he goes down in 1 and 2, you say wide open on the bottom, comes off 2, down the back straight away, and he's thinking, that was good. Now I got to get through 3 and 4 right? So he starts telling me this series of stories, of his thoughts, and he's like, "Okay, when I get into 3, I got to hold it wide open and right down to the bottom and hope that thing sticks." And he says, "If it don't stick, I'm going to hit the wall hard, right? I don't want to do that. But if I don't hold it wide open, I got to run the hooligan race. I don't want to do that." He said, "Well, maybe if I just go in the turn, I can run it up or run the high groove and hold it wide open. And if it does wreck, I won't hit as hard, but the lap won't be as fast. So that probably ain't going to work either. So damn, do I lift and have to run the hooligan race, or do I hold it wide?" Now, you got to understand, it takes 4 or 5 seconds to go down the back straightaway at Charlotte, right? Harry spends 10 minutes telling me every thought that he has in those 4 seconds, right? He explains every thought it went through his mind in a matter of 4 seconds, and it took him 10 minutes to tell me. But that's Harry. I tell people, Harry has got this uncanny ability to. He's always trying to one up. He's always trying to figure out how to get an advantage on somebody, how to one up somebody, and he could always come up with the dangest things you ever seen that he would get a one up. Not just racing, but building homes and carpentry work and all. He's always looking for that angle, to get a shortcut to make things work better for him. And so anyhow, he's doing all that. So I said, "Well, what happened, Harry?" He said, "Well, I'm going down that straightaway, and I think if I lift, I got to run the hooligan race. If I don't lift, I might wreck." He said, "You know what I did?" "What, Rick?" Or what, Harry? He said, "I got to the turn. I went in turn 3. I turned it right to the bottom. I held that thing wide open. I curled my toes back on my accelerator foot." I said, "You did what?" He said, I curled my toes back." I said, "Why did you curl? What did that do? Curl your toes back?" He said, "That made me think that I was lifted, but I never lifted. That thing stayed wide open the whole way." And he got in, he got in the show. He was fast enough to get in. But that's typical Harry. And there's 10,000 stories like that we could talk about as time goes on with Harry Gant. But God love Harry Gant, one of my friends, and I love him to death.
Well, it's a great story, and I'm sure that as we go on here on Mast Cast, that plenty more of those stories will come up and be told, and I look forward to all of them. So, but I'm glad you told that one. That one was funny. Even watching on TV, you could hear the laugh it got in the room, and so that was really great. And congratulations to Harry. It's cool to see. It's cool. I mean, I'm a sports guy in general, so I always like it. I'm always interested in who made the Hall of Fame, especially, baseball, NASCAR, football, the sports I really follow. I follow college basketball too with our Virginia Cavaliers, but I don't follow the Basketball Hall of Fame as closely. But it's great to see. And I especially love guys that were in your era, seeing them go into that's really cool. So that's awesome,
Yeah.
man. It's great. And great to see the 33 car in the Hall of Fame. Very cool.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the current times.
Can we back up just a second?
Please.
Let's talk a little more about that. A couple other things went on there. Number one, Harry Gant. Number 2, I know half of Richmond, Virginia was vacant Friday night because it seemed like half that banquet hall was filled with Richmond, Virginia people, and they're all somehow or another related to Ray Hendrick. Right? Finally, Ray Hendrick got in the hall, and he was so representative. His family was there. They're such neat, nice folks, right? And Roy, his son, who I was friends with, I raced against Roy a little bit. We lost Roy here a while back, a year or so ago. Everybody's kind of sad that he didn't get to see that, but very, very, very good that the Hall finally recognized Ray, and I'm so glad he's in there. I'll tell you a quick funny story about Kurt Busch. I went up to Kurt. Actually, we were at the Hall, I don't know, back in December maybe for an alumni function. And anyhow, Kurt was there, and I went up to him, and I said, Kurt, Rick, I introduced myself. Hey, Rick, I know. I said, well, Kurt, I got to tell you something. I want to tell you how proud I am of you. He said, what? I said, I want to tell you something. I'm real proud of you. He says, really? I said, well, here's the deal. I said, you were coming in as I was going out. I said, the last year I was in the sport, the last 6 months or other, we were parked beside each other, or we were together in the garage area. And I said, a couple times, I'd say something, and you kind of blow me off. And I said, one time we were parked right beside each other in the garage area, or in the motorhome lot. And I come out of my motorhome, and you were going in your motorhome, and we were right beside each other. I said, hey, man, how's it going? And I said, you never even you never slowed down. You never looked. You never did anything. Didn't look at me, right? Didn't say a word. You went by, and I said, all right, the hell with that prick, right? Yeah, I've seen that attitude before in our sport, right? And didn't really think a whole lot about it because, like I say, I've seen that before, seen how that plays out a lot of times. Well, so then in my career and all through the years, I kept an eye on Kurt because she was so talented, and in my view, anybody that's real talented, God-given talents to drive a race car, I always pull for him, man. I really do. I just, I throw out the bad things and look for the good, and like, he kept doing his thing. He was winning races, running up front, doing all these things. And, he just couldn't ever get it together, out of the race car. And then something happened, whatever it was that started his turn back to being a normal person, you might say. It got to where, just the last few years, Kurt's like, all right, you got it figured out, man. You're a good dude, right? You're a good dude. And for that, for your turnaround and for what you've accomplished, I'm very, very proud of you, right? And he seemed to enjoy that. He seemed to accept that. And so it was pretty cool.
He does seem. I don't think I've ever met Kurt. Just watched from afar, like every other fan. But he does seem, and you never know. You just never really truly know with people behind closed doors, and especially with athletes, celebrities, whoever, when they have a bad moment publicly that they have to then try to come back from. A lot of times you'll see them try to make their apology and come back, and you go, I don't know if that's real or not. They're doing it because they got to do it. You just don't know. He is one, again, I don't know. I don't know the man, but he does seem like it's genuinely turned for him. Like he's really, that he, at whatever point, like you said, at whatever point that he figured it out and has become a much better person and man because of how he was. I thought it was telling in his speech the other night. I was very intrigued by coming into it by his speech to wonder how much was he going to acknowledge, or how would he acknowledge kind of some of his missteps early on. And I thought it was, whether he or whoever wrote it, I thought it was a smooth way of talking about when I think it got really bad for him when he was driving for Roger Penske in the Blue 2 car. When he said that one line, I wish I would have respected it more.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool way of expressing how he looks back at that time, of like how I just thought that was such a simple line, but such a great way of expressing remorse and acknowledging that time in his life.
Yeah. And Cup racing, I'm going to tell you right now, Cup racing has this way of humbling the best, right? And that's why I said, when he said that to me, and I thought, well, heck with you, right? I thought, yeah, I've seen this before. I know how this goes. And a lot of times that attitude won't carry you. Kurt was so talented, but his talent on the racetrack and his results it carried him, and it overcame his shortcomings with his personal part, right? But it finally bit him in the butt where he was kind of out there, in La La Land and didn't have anything. And he went to James Finch. And, for people in our sport that know James Finch, he's a good guy, man, party hard, fun-loving guy, does a lot of good things. But that team was not a top flight team, but he turned that team around and about won a race with that car, right? And that kind of got him going again, and he was saying the right things and doing the right things off the racetrack, and I guess that's kind of what propelled him, got him going again. So anyhow, just proud of the boy.
Yeah, no, that was cool. And like you said, for Ray and his family too, I have memories. I was born in '83, so my first memories in life, almost all of my first memories in life, happened at a racetrack. I have a lot of fond memories from being young, being at Martinsville, and that 11 car, that 11 red 11 car with I don't, what is it, fire or flames, is it wing,
Flames.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
Man, it
flames.
just looked
Yeah,
cool. It just
yeah,
looked cool then. It still looks
yeah,
cool now.
yeah.
And it just something, even if you didn't sit there and know any of his stats or what he did or anything, if you're familiar with watching the sport, or you just remember you were a kid like I do, seeing that car in the Hall of Fame, just something about it. I was looking at that, I was like, man, it just looks right. It should have been, that feels like something that should have been there when they opened the doors years ago, just that image. So great. It was cool to see that his family, and they kept showing shots of the family sitting there in the audience, and just how much it meant to them. So um wish it could have been sooner, but it happened, and there's still a lot of his people that loved him and descended from him who care a lot and are very appreciative of it. So
Well, Ray Hendrick, he's just like so many drivers. He was just one of the best, right? He was one of the best natural ability drivers there ever was. I mean, that's it's just the way it is.
yeah,
Case closed.
yeah, it's a great Hall of Fame class. Those three
Yeah,
strong ones, different eras,
yeah.
different. It was really strong. I'm glad you got to be a part of it. That was very cool. Well, let's talk about the 2026 season because it's on us. What are you most excited about for this season? We're not gonna go hard into the negative. There's enough negativity out there. I'm sure something will piss us off every now and then that we'll talk about on this show, but at least to start out, we're gonna try to keep things positive around here. So, what are you excited about as we go into the new season?
Real honestly, I want to see. I mean, we had all the crap that went on last fall and last winter with the lawsuit, right? And all the media. That's all anybody knew about in November and December was the lawsuit. All of the media, all of our fans, all the competitors. We went through all that. They came to an agreement. They reached an agreement. Both sides conceded a little bit. Everybody says, okay, now we're going to all work together to grow the sport. NASCAR goes behind closed doors. They come out with a new points format, right? Listening to the fans, and that's really what that came from. And our buddy Mark Martin pressured him so hard. And what I want to see, what I'm looking forward to this year more than anything, is to see. We've got momentum right now, Rick. We've got the big Mo on our side. There's no two ways about it. We got a lot of synergy right now with everything the way it transpired. I want to see us as a industry, as a sport. I want to see the momentum carried forward and growing. I want to see NASCAR doing their thing, taking this momentum, going with it, growing with it. I want to see the teams, everybody get behind the sport and be more positive. I tell you what I'd love to see is the journalists be very positive about what we're doing. Okay. You've heard me criticize these guys, and I love journalists to death. A lot of them I know and love these guys, but some of them could get a little negative, right? And do things. I want to see some of that stuff gone. I want to see if there's a story that day, I want to see the positive of that story. I don't want to see the negative of that story. Hell, anybody can write that. I want to see these guys make a concerted effort like NASCAR's doing, like the teams are doing, to put a good step forward and try to grow this thing and let's get it back to where it was. Let's get our thing going. This is the first time, Ricky, that I know in an off season that we have this opportunity, you might say, to grab onto this momentum that we've got. The things that's transpired. I mean, we've had some terrible things go on this winter, but we've got good things. I think that I just want to see everybody embrace it. I want to see everybody do it. It's not that I don't want to sit back and watch how it happens. I don't want to sit back and see what happens. That's not what I'm saying. I want to sit back and watch these people actually do things, do positive things, write positive stories, do positive things from NASCAR in the hierarchy. The team's doing positive things about our sport. Our broadcast partners. I want to see those guys step it up a notch. I want to see those guys do more positive things for our sport, right? I want to see the sponsors. I want to see these corporate sponsors that are involved with NASCAR and on these race teams. I want to see those guys step it up a half a notch, step it up one notch. Send your driver out here to the fields, right? Send your driver out. Let him do some autographs. Don't keep him shackled behind closed doors. Let him be himself. Let these drivers be themselves more. Don't I don't like for the sponsors to come down on a driver. The drivers, now they're nothing wrong with these guys. They're all heroes, but we don't know that because they're so not downtrodden, but they're shackled in what they can say and do and how they present themselves and all. I would love for sponsors to say, all right, man, just be yourself. You're not going to embarrass us, right? Or to some degree, but
don't neuter them. Don't render them. Don't make them vanilla robots that they're just saying the same thing, and don't ever say anything that could possibly slightly upset anybody. And I get that. Like, I understand the brand side of it. I really do. But you have to have faith, and they're putting a lot of money. If they're investing in the sport, then we're talking 6, 7 figures, sometimes more. It's a lot of money, so I get it. But letting these guys be who they are and have some personality is what's going to be good for your brand. That's what's going to work. But that's how you got heroes back in the day. That's how you got the Dale Earnhardt Sr. as a working class hero, and then the kind of the younger, flashy Jeff Gordon on the opposite side of him. And then you got guys like Harry Gant and Rick Mast and the Jimmy Spencer and then the Bo. You just got all these personalities. Let people be who they are. I'll tell you, Dad. So as you mentioned earlier, I work for the Atlanta Braves, a lifelong fan, and I've worked for them this will be my 12th season. So one of my many duties with the Braves is I host a team podcast Behind the Braves. And so this last year, because we were promoting the baseball game that happened at Bristol Motor Speedway last summer, I had an opportunity, a natural opportunity, an organic opportunity to have a lot of NASCAR drivers on a baseball podcast. Believe me, I'd love to have as many NASCAR drivers as I could, but it's a baseball show. So, it makes sense when you got the Dillon brothers who are diehard Braves fans, or Chase Elliott, who's a diehard Braves fan. So we have them on. But I got a chance to have some other guys on. Had all the Spires drivers from last year. Hocevar, man, he's great. He's a great personality. Young dude. Right. I mean, he's still so young and figuring it all out. But personality, he's got it. Like, he's funny. McDowell's a nice guy. I'll tell you who I loved getting to talk to later in the year, who I'll say it, I was convinced was just as I thought he was vanilla. So I didn't dislike him, but I wasn't a fan. Christopher Bell came to the ballpark to do some promo for the race that weekend, came out, signed autographs. And I asked, would he do Behind the Braves podcast? And he said yes. So I had him on for 20 minutes. Man, he was so fun, relaxed, funny, engaging, had a personality. And I thought, damn, I've not seen this guy. So, and I became a fan then. Like, I root for him now. And again, I wasn't a hater before, but I'm like, man, I enjoyed my experience with him so much. And I saw the person there, a fun guy, personality. I'm like, okay, I can root for this dude now. Like, I know I know a little bit about this dude now. And so I felt like that's what needs to happen. Let these guys go out to places, put Christopher Bell at a baseball stadium, signing autographs, doing a show, showing who he is to people who, how many people that are listening to an Atlanta Braves podcast are also already not only Christopher Bell fans, but just NASCAR fans in general. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover, but I guarantee you Christopher Bell earned some new fans out of that one little baseball podcast episode.
Yeah. And those guys,
letting these guys do this, be themselves. No, letting these guys be themselves. That's just, you got to do it.
Yeah. And they don't. Right. And and like I say, it comes back to the corporate sponsorship and the image they want. But man, if they would all just say, all right, we're going to take one step forward, right? We're going to ease up on some of this. We're going to do this. We're going to promote our driver, right? I mean, Ricky, when I was there in the 90s, good Lord of mercy, and you remember this, I was gone off doing autographs more than I was gone off doing racing. And that was a lot with UST, US Tobacco, the Skoal brand. I mean, they had Harry Gant now all over this country. We had every little short track up and everywhere in this country. I bet you I've been to, well, I shouldn't say that. I've been to more racetracks than most of the people in this country. Just being there for 2 hours somewhere back in the 90s, signing autographs and doing these things. And I was privileged to be with Harry. A lot of these things we did them together. And, it was just, I don't know. We were out there and a lot of other drivers, a lot of other teams, they were doing the exact same things, doing all the little kind of die casts that you give to the kids, right? All the promotions. You go to any grocery store and there's Dale Earnhardt staring you in the face or Darrell Waltrip, right? And trying to sell you some goodies, right? And shelf space and all that stuff. Just everywhere you went, these drivers were, no matter where you went, these drivers plastered. I'm going to tell you something. We go into a whole nother story, but when it hit me how big our sport was, one time we were sitting there talking one day in the garage area. I was 3 or 4 of us, and Kyle Petty's in there. We're talking about how crazy our sport had become, right? And how popular this thing had become. Kyle says, have y'all been watching, I forget what he said, news or something. He said, you see what those kids in the inner cities are wearing? We said, what are you talking about, Kyle? He says, start paying attention when you see video clips or something from inner city kids. What do you mean? They've all got NASCAR stuff on. All these inner city kids in Detroit and Chicago and New York, all these kids, and he was right. They all had friggin' NASCAR coats and shirts and stuff on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what it dawned on me. Man, we are reaching everybody. How in the world are we doing this? Well, however we did that, right? That's how we need to do it again. Reach all these people. But it's going to take effort from everybody in the industry to do that. And you've heard me say it a million times. I've talked to NASCAR about it. I talk to everybody who wants to hear it. Our drivers have to become heroes to everyday Americans. You can't, how can I say, when we used to do autograph sessions, and believe me, I did autographs with everybody in our sport. Dozens of times. We'd be doing an autograph session and whoever sat beside you. There were three guys that when you sit down beside, it was different. When you sit down beside, if I had Richard Petty beside me, Dale Earnhardt Sr., or Harry Gant beside me, it was a different deal. These people would come up, and I'm telling you, autograph seekers, a lot of times they'd be nervous, even with me, right? They'd be nervous, and you could see they were shaking and carrying on. But when you sit down beside those 3 guys, and the people came up, I mean, people were in tears, right? People would shake so bad they dropped their hero card or the diecast card, right? They couldn't even hardly speak to those 3 guys, and it was. I was always amazed watching this, right? Because Harry is very quiet demeanor, right? But he put the persona he put out and the way he was presented by Skoal and the amount of exposure that Skoal gave him to the American public. Because I'm telling you, he was out there all the time meeting all the fans, right? That's what did it with him. Of course, the King's the King and Dale Sr.'s Dale Sr. And then as time went on, Jeff Gordon got like that a little bit. He not quite as, the people weren't quite as emotional with him, right? With these 3 guys, but it's been good. But anyhow, the thing is, all these guys had reached these people. The fans felt like these guys were the heroes, right? They were their heroes, and it came about in a variety of ways, right? And so many of the guys, it was like that. I mean, people would love or hate Jimmy, right? My good friend Jimmy Spence, you'd love or hate him, or you'd root for Gordon and against Earnhardt and all that stuff. But it wasn't just 3 or 4 guys. It was a whole group that was in this garage area, and people just related. And it had a lot to do with corporate sponsorship. Those guys promoting the drivers, getting them out there, getting them in front of everybody, right? Every day, getting them out there. And over time, it's become, really don't care. Just don't cause any problems. Just win on the racetrack, and we'll see you next Sunday and win for us again. Just get our name, our race car on front, out front on the TV camera, and then all the pictures for victory lane. That's and then, for during the week and everything, just don't cause us any kind of problems. Don't, that shit's got to change. That shit right there has got to change. And they can do that. They can do that, but it's going to take a collective effort from everybody to do that. So back to your original question, Ricky, what am I looking forward to this year? That's what I'm looking forward to, seeing these people do these things that I want to see done. And I'm going to tell you something. We'll stay on it right there too. We'll stay on it every week, right? If I see something that I think they should be doing or they're doing wrong, we will talk about it here on Mast Cast. I tell you what I think they're doing wrong, or they just did something good. They need to keep doing more of that, right? And
Yeah, I would say I think that's what you should like. You should do that. Talk about what they've done wrong. Well, let's also if they're doing something right, or we really like how they're
right,
pushing this guy, or they're telling his
right,
story. Like, man, do that. Everybody do
right.
more of that, or try to do more of that. You're right, and they cultivated kind of heroes back in the day. You have your, and you know what? You could have different. You need different heroes for different types of people. Honestly, you got your working class heroes. You got your, you know, a Jeff Gordon hero is a different hero than Dale Earnhardt Sr. It's also part of the reason why they work so well against each other in their
That's right.
marketing,
That's
because
right.
they're completely everything about him was so perfectly polar opposite from their
Right.
brand perspective. But yeah, you got to have these heroes. I will say, I'm watching the when they announced that the chase was back. I watched that press conference, and I thought, to me, and again, we got to see it in action. I mean, you see it before you truly believe it. But I will say, watching that whole thing and how they did it, what was said, what Steve O'Donnell said, the having Martin there on stage to talk about it and be kind of really a face of this point system change, both on social media and then to be at the official event announcing it. Um, I
Well,
like
yeah.
so much of what was said there. Like I really like. Well, I'll start with just a couple of things. So Steve O'Donnell saying we've got work to do. We got to rebuild those relationships in the garage, but more importantly, we got to re-engage our core fans. I thought that was. I'm like, that's the right thing to say. Hopefully you follow that. Chase Elliott said something at that press conference I liked. He said, we got to learn to enjoy what we have, which was something kind of touched on what you said earlier. But really, rebuilding those relationships both in the garage and with the core fans, I think that's those are both so crucial to the health of the sport, the future of the sport, building it up, rebuilding what was broken, but also building upon what you have. I think it's paramount that they do those things. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how they do.
Yeah, the first step, but I said it from the very beginning. I said the first step. If they don't do this first step, forget it. But they took the first step for whatever, however it came down. Phelps is no longer the commissioner of NASCAR, right? That good guy, bad guy. He meant it, didn't mean it, whatever. What he did, he alienated. Yeah, you call Richard Childress a redneck and all that stuff, right? Well, you alienated half your fan base because it wasn't the fans took it as, yeah, he's talking about Childress, but hell, he's talking about me, right? I mean, I read it. We all read it on social media. We know what happened. So it was such a bad deal, such a big deal that they had no choice. Well, had no choice. They could have kept him, right, or whatever. But to me, that was the first step of from NASCAR's standpoint of righting this ship, getting that rudder back in the path it needs to be on. We had to do that, and they did that. That's the first step. The second step, what's the second step? They changed the points format, right? Everybody's been bitching and griping for so long. Okay, they did that. That's the second step they did. Now let's see how the rest of the steps go. And I truly think it's going to go. I think it's going to go great.
I do too. I think you're exactly right. I think those are the moves they had to make. Like you're saying, good guy, bad guy. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't really matter. And look, I'll say I don't want all my text messages with my buddies, anything else out there, because there's
No,
some things in there
no,
you don't that you say amongst
no.
private people that
Right,
you don't want out there. I think that's
right.
if you're telling me, if you show me somebody that says, well, no, that's not true for me, then you're showing me somebody that doesn't have a phone.
Right.
So, but that being said, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's out there. Once it's out there, it's out there. And I'll admit, I took offense to some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
the
yeah.
children's stuff. I took offense to the talking to, like, kind of hating on the 1996 version of NASCAR. I
Right.
understand people would say, well, he's talking about the TV deals and the media deals. It wasn't consolidated. I get that. That's a valid point. You're right.
Right.
That's
Right.
totally understand. However, as somebody that was there in 96, I was just a 13, at that point, I was a 13-year-old son of a driver. So it's not like I was actually contributing anything. I was just there. I'm sitting there thinking back to when you go to a race in 96 and the people trying to sell you a parking spot in their yards would start a few miles out. And then it was like you're going into Woodstock every week. And it was not, it wasn't an event. It was the event within hundreds of miles of that thing. I mean, it was like larger than life. And, and then you go in and there not only is there ain't an empty seat wherever you're going, every time you show up twice a year. It's like, damn, they built more grandstands. Like, you're going to Dover, Delaware. It's like they got 120,000 people here now twice a year. Like, and I don't know that some of that stuff is sustainable now, no
Right.
matter, just
Right.
because there's so much has changed with our entertainment.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not a person that's going, we need to have 120,000 people at Dover. I'm not that guy. I understand. I'm realistic about this stuff, but I'm talking more about the feeling of going to an event back then and what really that was the foundation for. I mean, the guys that came before you built it. I mean,
That's right.
Big Bill started this thing in the late 40s with this
That's
group. There
right.
was moonshiners that were building stuff before him, and then he builds it, and then the next generation builds it. So all these guys, you're standing on the shoulders of what the previous generation built
Right.
for you. And when you
Right.
come in and crap on what a previous generation did, I took offense to that. And again,
Yeah.
I'm your son. I had nothing to do with building the sport. But I took offense to it because I'm sitting there going, well, I was around in 96. It was pretty good in 96. It
Yeah.
was a pretty
Yeah.
damn fun time to be a part of it and be around it. And the sport was
Yeah.
pretty healthy then.
Yeah.
Media deals, bad or not, pretty good. So it just again, it's texts that were never meant to see the light of day. But in your
Yeah.
mind, your fan mind, you're thinking, well, maybe these weren't supposed to come out, but I'm getting perhaps a view into how this guy or whoever really thinks
Yeah.
about things.
Yeah.
And that in turn is how they think about me
Yeah.
as a fan.
Yeah.
So why am I then going to take my Sunday to watch this product? Why am I going to spend hundreds of dollars to bring me and my family to a race, travel wherever to watch a race? Why am I going to
Yeah.
go to that souvenir truck and buy, gear? Why am I going to do any of this stuff if the people running the sport, if that's their opinion of me? Yeah. So all this comes back to, you got to re-engage that fan, and you got to show him her that, hey, we're back. We're
Yeah.
back. We're back. We want to mend this. And then the point side of it, I'm so happy they went back to a more closer to traditional style point system. I mean, don't get me wrong. I watched when you had the winning in and the final four, and I think you mostly have pretty legitimate champions in there. The problem is it comes down to every sport wants their game 7 and their game 7
Mm-hmm.
moments. You always want that. But what makes game 7 special is they don't always happen. And if
Uh-huh.
you have it set up to where the game 7 always happens, well, then it's not special anymore. And it just
Mm-hmm.
isn't. I think for the most part, they avoided like a champion where you're going, man, that just feels really not legitimate or not deserving to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I grew up in there with the full season points. So now I would say the old style when you were racing, I do think the one thing that system was lacking was, I think wins should have counted for a little bit more than they did. That was one thing with that system, that the wins needed to be weighted a little heavier. Um, so those are what I'm most excited about. I'm most excited with you just to see hopefully how they reach out to those core fans and prop up the drivers. And I'm excited for this point system. I think it's going to be fun. People have to understand again, this comes back to you can't always have a game 7. You could have a situation where you get to the last race at Homestead and guy ain't got to do much but start the race and run a couple laps, and he's got the
Right.
point system. You know what?
Right.
That's the way it was
That's
back in the
fine.
90s, and
Yeah.
it was fine. Earnhardt, you finished second to Earnhardt at Rockingham in 94. That was next to last race. He clinched the championship that day.
I
I
should have
mean,
won that damn race too. I
yeah,
should have
you
won
should have
that
won
damn
that.
race. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
you should have.
I
Yeah,
regret
yeah,
it.
you should have. You should have. But you could have a 1992 situation where it's the greatest points race ever. You could turn around a year or two later and have it where some guy has got it wrapped up long before it's over. And you know what? Either way, it's okay. Because
Yeah.
what do you have?
Yeah.
1992, you got the greatest point system ever, chase ever. Alan Kwiecki, the independent car owner driver, wins it. He's in the Hall of Fame now over Bill Elliott, Davey Allison, these guys. But then you turn around, you have Dale Earnhardt Sr. winning his 7th championship in 94 by running away with it. And you know what?
Right.
Both are great. There's nothing wrong
That's
with
right.
either one of those.
That's
The
right.
heroes are shining through in those. It's
Yeah,
not a made
exactly.
for TV game 7 moment. The heroes are shining through.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Agreed. You're exactly right, Rick. You've hit all the points, man. I mean, like I say, I don't really care either way. Just good deal at the end. You all right? And but I want to back up one little segment. We're talking about the NASCAR and the Phelps and all that. The one thing that does bother me a little bit, because his name is Jim France, he catches all the heat, right? And through the court proceedings and all and everything that went on, Jim was very steadfast in not, issuing permanent charters, and the reasons he gave were valid. And anyhow, he ended up making all that work out. Jim, I wish every fan that followed our sport could understand what I'm about to say. Jim France, yeah, he's a France. It's a France family. But Jim France is, number one, the greatest fan of racing that you'd ever want to meet. He's a very quiet dude. He was always in the background with the family, right? He let his daddy and let Bill Jr. run the thing and do all that. And then when Brian took it over, he had to do it. And when Jim had to take it over, he had to take it over, right? He was he was the man at that point. And Jim, you'll hear stories about Jim France. You'll find him at Kingsport, Tennessee, little short track, setting up in a lawn chair in the grass right there, drinking beer with other fans around him, right? You'll find him at these other racetracks sitting in the grandstands, drinking a beer with a baseball cap on, just having a good time, having a ball, watching racing. That's what he is. He's a true race fan that has a family legacy that he has to, run, right? And the thing of it is, and I tell people all the time, you know, he's the CEO, basically, he runs NASCAR. All right, you're the CEO of NASCAR. All right, say what is the company? I forget now the annual revenue. What is it? I forget. A billion, 5 billion a year,
I don't
whatever it
know.
is. Just say 5 billion is your gross revenue. My little thingy keeps coming out. I got to get a new thingy.
Well,
My little
we'll
felt
get you a new
thingy
thingy
come out.
for we'll get you a new thingy for episode 2.
All right, but anyhow, uh, where was I? I forgot my train of thought.
It's you were the billion revenue of things,
Yeah.
Jim.
All right. You've got a CEO of a $6 billion company, and they make peanut butter. Okay, that CEO's job is to run that company and make peanut butter. That's what he's got to do. Now think about what that encompasses, which is a lot, right? Think about a CEO that's got to run NASCAR, a $6 billion company that's got to run NASCAR, right? Which one do you think would keep your plate busier? Do you think the peanut butter guy or the guy running NASCAR? That's a pretty easy answer, right? But
Okay.
Jim, he's taken a lot of heat, right? And rightfully so, because the buck stops with him, all right? But truly is not what he wants. He wants this sport to be great. He wants his drivers to be great. He wants everybody to be great. What?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the peanut butter thing. So you're saying, I'm just trying to understand the point. Like it's being NASCAR CEO is a little more complicated than a lot of CEO jobs. Is that what is
That's
that what you?
exactly what I'm trying to
Okay,
say.
all right, okay.
That's
All right,
exactly
you're
what
not
I'm
wrong.
trying to
You're not
say.
wrong. I just want to make sure I understood the peanut
Hey, I
butter.
remember Mr. Bannell run U.S. Tobacco and Skoal brand, right? That stuff would sell itself. Skoal would sell itself. You didn't have to have salesmen. The
That's true.
stuff would just the people that chew it love it. You just make it all work, make all the numbers work, all the people hired, and the HR department happy. You don't get sued and all that like any CEO has to do. You look at the numbers once a month from at the board meeting or at the board meeting. You see everything's the way it's supposed to be. Right? Might make a decision or two. Hell, NASCAR CEOs every day with something coming out of left field, right? No, I'm not. That is what it is. That's what they are. But my point being, probably shouldn't have went down that road. But
Oh no, it's okay.
my point being, Jim France is portrayed as something he's really not. Jim France is a good guy. Jim France loves racing. He loves race fans. He loves the culture of our sport. He loves the history of our sport. Right? He truly does. And
I believe that.
I wish but the position he's in, he's set up for to take criticism, and he does that very well. But just want all the
Well,
fans know he's a good dude, man.
I'll tell you. Talking about the lawsuit. So for me, here's why I knew. We get to the lawsuit where it's in the news every day, and where I started sitting there going, "Man, we could really be in some serious trouble here." Meaning, I played out this every scenario in my head of either side winning the case. And I just thought, man, if they don't settle and one side prevails, I swear, and I could have been wrong, but for me, I'm like, if they don't settle on this and one side wins, in the end, my fear was that everybody was going to lose because I
Well,
just
yeah,
kept playing it
yeah,
out. So, but here's when I knew it was real. We were in a pretty bad spot. Um, so one of my best friends in the world, Will, calls me one day. Will is a big sports fan. He is not a NASCAR fan. Doesn't really know anything about it other than his buddy Ricky's dad. Rick used to run it. Knows a couple names. He got Dale Jarrett's autograph at a minor league baseball game one time, but doesn't know about it. But he calls me and says, "All right, explain to me in baseball terms or other sport terms what's happening with this lawsuit." So basically what I'm getting at there was somebody who doesn't follow NASCAR and just we're not ever going to get him as a NASCAR fan, I don't think. But it was enough in his mind, or it was coming into his world enough that he wanted to find out what's going on. And by
right,
the way, after I explained it to him, his analogy was that NASCAR is basically like professional wrestling. Anyway, so he calls me and I explain it to him. I'm like, somebody that I know is not a NASCAR fan, not going to get into NASCAR, but that's all he knows of NASCAR right now is this big lawsuit between NASCAR, Michael Jordan, and whatnot. So then my buddy CD calls me a couple days after that. Now CD is a big NASCAR fan. He's of my friends, he's probably the biggest NASCAR fan I know. So we talk about. I sat there. I was on my way. I was going to Home Depot to get Christmas lights. And he called me when I got to the parking lot, and he and I ended up sitting there. I sat in the parking lot for an hour talking to him about this at the Home Depot parking lot. So we're talking about the lawsuit, and I'm telling him every hypothetical scenario in my head and how I just don't see any of them outside of settling being good. And so then thankfully when they settled, I'm like, okay, great. They settled. I thought the best thing, I mean, in addition to the settlement itself, the best thing in the world was Michael Jordan and Jim France standing side by side on those steps, being respectful of each other, saying positive things about each other. And I can't remember, I don't have it in front of me. I feel like Michael, even during his testimony, I felt like pretty respectful.
he was very respectful. Yeah, yeah,
So which I
he
thought
was.
was really cool that's how that went. So at the end of the day, for them to settle and then to put on a public front of like, okay, it's time for us to work together now to build this sport for everybody involved, and for us teams, for NASCAR, but most importantly for the fans. Okay, that to me was the absolute best outcome of that whole deal. Regardless of, I won't even get into all the charters and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff. Just from a public perspective, And for the health of the future of the sport, that was the best outcome of that we could have possibly
Oh,
had.
no doubt, no doubt, it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work if it had to go to jury and whoever won one side or the other. The most telling statement, the best statement I thought had come out on those courtroom steps, courtroom steps. Jim France. Thank goodness. Now we can go back to what we're supposed to be doing, and that's the business of running racing.
Yeah, that's right.
Running racing, running NASCAR. Right. That summed that up for me. Summed the whole thing up. I'm like, okay, and that's when I said, okay, Jim, let's see step one, then step two. So there you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Well, just a couple quick things before we wrap up our kind of first. This is the first episode of the newly revived Mast Cast. Today, as we're recording this show will probably come out a couple days after we record this on Kenny Wallace Media, but came out today. I think Jordan Bianchi, the Athletic, I think that's who it was, put out there that the Charlotte playoff race is going back. It's not going to be at the Roval. It's going to be back on the oval track, which is great news. I will admit, I think in our first version of Mast Cast way back in 2018, when the Roval thing started, I was excited about it. It was something new, different, kind of cool. So I was into it. In the first couple of years, I was into it. But it definitely, for me personally, it wore off after a couple of years. And now, especially like last year, after how good the 600 was last year, I remember watching the 600 and I'm like, man, I sure would like to watch this again come October or whenever the playoff race was. So good on them for going back to that. So, I mean, I feel sure we haven't talked about it, but I feel sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I hated it when they did it, right? I hated how they're doing it, and I still hate it. I never liked it. Just, that's me. That's just me, one fan of the sport that I did not like. All right, I give it to you, Ricky. First year, all right, we'll try it. Second year, at most. Second time, at most, right? After the second time, I'm like, come on, guys, get rid of that crap, right? You got to give them credit. You give NASCAR credit last few years, all the stuff they've reached out and been doing, right? I mean, and the Roval just goes kind of in line with all this other stuff they've been doing. Going to Detroit, you went to Mexico, trying all these venues out, trying different things. Or Chicago, Chicago.
Yeah.
Trying all the different things out, right? Nothing wrong with that. But I just didn't like the Roval. Didn't like it when they did it. Didn't like it while they were doing it. Still don't like it. Tickled to death we're not doing it anymore. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
I like that they're willing to try some new things. I think that's cool. I'm actually really looking forward to the San Diego street race, like out at the Naval Base, America's 250th birthday. I'm like, that's presumably a one-off. And I'm like, that's a cool ass one-off. America's 250th birthday. We're going to race on a naval base. Like, that's cool. Like, I got no,
and you know what else about that, Ricky? Your sisters, Katie and Sarah, one of their dearest best friends is stationed there. A girl, and she flies friggin' helicopters now, right?
Yeah.
And, but
awesome.
Jessica, she wanted to make sure it was going. She wanted all of us to come out for the race. She wanted the girls to come out for the race at the base, but she's not sure she might be deployed then. She's getting ready to go on a deployment, her first deployment right now, actually. And but anyhow, just a side note. Cool story.
So I want them to keep doing kind of cool one-off stuff like that, like where it makes sense. I'll admit, I felt like I was in the minority back when they did it, and it's gone now. I know a lot of people were all excited about the Bristol dirt race when it came back. I never liked it. I watched it and it was, it was interesting or whatever, but I never liked it. I was so glad when they did away with it. I love dirt racing. Natural Bridge Speedway is where my granddaddy, your dad, and your Uncle John owned the place. That's where you grew up. That's where you started your career. I love dirt racing. It's awesome. I don't need to see cup cars on a dirt track. I want, especially if they're at Bristol, just race at Bristol. I don't need dirt or gimmicks there.
No, I mean, again, trying to, we were in the downslide then, Rick, right? We were in the down. NASCAR was going down, and they were trying things. They were throwing things against the wall. Just let's try this, let's try that, and for that, you got to commend him for that, right? Because that's taking some pretty big chances. But some of it worked, some of it didn't work. Yeah, and Bristol, I didn't like that. Like the Roval, I did not like it. It was pretty cool the first race or two to watch it. You're like, okay, we're on dirt, but we could go to Eldora and watch this, right?
Yeah.
Not at Bristol, but
Yeah.
anyhow, and you got to give Marcus Smith and those guys credit for being innovative, wanting to try stuff like that. You got to give Marcus credit for bringing the race back instead of the Roval at Charlotte, right? So give credit where it's due. But I think a lot of that stuff was just we were just on such a downhill thing. We needed to try stuff, and that's what we did. And I'm sure they learned a lot. They've learned a lot from all the things they've done recently.
They have. I think that's the cool thing where they've netted out with it now is now you're kind of figuring out like, oh, we can do a San Diego race to coincide with the 250th anniversary of
Right.
America. You can do.
Right.
I think they're kind of figuring out where these kind of things really work for them, and that they don't have to go as hard as terms of the quantity, like as many events in a single year. Uh, Bowman Gray last year, I loved it. I've loved it. I'm happy to see it coming back. I'm pumped about that. Um,
Yeah, I understand they're going to have to use studded tires. Do you know what a studded tire is?
I do not, well, as we established at the beginning of this show, I am not a mechanically minded person. I'm merely I like watching cars go around the track. Aside from changing a flat tire, changing my oil, I did change a battery once after watching how to do it on
Hey,
YouTube.
man.
So no, I don't know what a studded tire is.
Well, back in the day, you had, in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s, you had regular tires. You had, but really before the bias ply, you had the tires you run all year. Then you had mud tires, snow tires, they call them, right? You'd buy a set of snow tires. And you come to the service station, right before wintertime, and you'd have these snow tires mounted on the rear of your car. You'd run them all winter. Come springtime, go back to the service station, take them off. They put your other tires back on. Now they've come up with then they come out with the all-weather tire, all-season tires, right? Along with these snow tires, they used to put these little metal studs in them, right? And they would protrude out just a little bit to give you extra grip on ice and in snow too. The reason I say that, I came across a set of those the other day in a old shop I walked through. I'm like, damn, I haven't seen any of those things in 40 years. Studded tires. So what I'm saying is we got cold weather forecast for North Wilkesboro, right? And maybe a little weather. So
Bowman
instead
Gray.
of Bowman Gray, yeah, man. So instead of canceling it, let's put some studded tires on those race tires. Let's get after it.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm here for it. All good.
Okay.
I got no problem with it. I enjoyed the Coliseum was an interesting experience. Again, I commend them for trying that out in LA. I enjoyed from a pure racing standpoint. I enjoyed Bowman Gray last year a lot more than I did Coliseum.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see them coming back there. And I think with a lot of these things that they try, like it feels just when if the novelty feels like it's wearing off, okay, then that's when it's time to move on from it. So
Yeah.
after Bowman Gray last year, I'm like, cool, I'm ready. Like bring it back here next year. I'm all for
Yeah.
it. No problem. So all right, a couple other quick things before we sign off on our first episode. One, Smoke is coming back to race a truck at Daytona, so I think that's kind of cool. There's some interesting things that I think Travis Pastrana is going to try to run a truck in that truck race at Daytona, but just Smoke coming back to run a one-off in the truck series, that'll be fun to watch, won't it?
Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, regardless of the circumstances, I'm assuming that's because of his relationship and his drag teams with Chrysler, right? And that he's going to be running one of the Dodge or one of the Rams, right, in the truck race. So I think that was, from what I understood, that was kind of how that came about. Doing it for Ram and Chrysler. So, but however it came about, it's going to be cool, right? We got Smoke back in a NASCAR vehicle at Daytona, man. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, even if it's a contractual thing, I would think the racer in him, like any racer, you put him in the car, in this case the truck, they're there to win. Don't matter why.
Yeah.
You're there to win.
Yeah. When he gets there and he gets strapped in, you forget that. You forget any contractual obligations or Chrysler or whatever. He don't give a damn. At that point, he's just going to try to win that race. I guarantee you.
Well, I did want to touch on because the tragedy with Greg Biffle and his family and the other passengers on that plane. Gosh, it was. Oh, it tears your heart out. I mean, we went in the 90s, when we lost Alan and the other folks in '93, and then Davey in another aviation crash a couple months later. It's always awful. Um, but I did want to touch on losing Greg Biffle, because you and my sister Katie, your daughter Katie, got to meet him and his wife I guess, or 2 years ago, I guess it was, at alumni weekend. And y'all's careers didn't cross over much. I actually, after he passed, I went on Racing Reference and just looked it up because I was curious. Like, I knew it was like right around the same time he was on
Right.
his way in your way, and I was curious, did y'all ever actually run a race against each other? And if I looked this up properly, his first NASCAR Cup race was in Fontana in April, I believe it was, of 2002. I think I'm right about that. Which happened to be one of your very last, before you had to get out of the car because of the carbon monoxide poisoning. So y'all actually did. You were in one Cup race against each other. Um, but I remember you and Katie went to the alumni weekend a couple years ago, got to meet Greg and his wife, and I remember Katie just talking about how cool they were and how
Yeah.
great they were. And then I saw Greg after that. I guess it was on his YouTube channel or somewhere on his socials. He put out a video talking about how much fun he had at alumni weekend, but that he said the person he enjoyed getting to meet and talk to the most was you. And so I really, after that, I started following Greg's social medias a little closer, and he was so entertaining, so funny. And then, of course, he goes from funny just to being a national hero, really, with the work that he did in North Carolina, and the aftermath of the Hurricane Helene, excuse me. Um, and it was just such a sad thing, but I thought I was glad at least that you and Katie at least got to have a little bit of interaction with him and his wife, and got to know the wonderful people that they were. So just before we wrap up, just some thoughts on the Biff.
Yeah. We spent probably 30 minutes together in the back room. We're getting ready to do the Darlington parade, right? And so it was me and him in a room there together. And then Katie was with Greg's wife in another room, right? Probably 30 minutes. And I came away with the feeling, damn, kindred spirit, right? I'm like, all right, you're one of the guys that if you were here all through the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, if you're here the whole time I was here, you're one of the guys that would be like one of my dudes, right? You would be my bud. Yeah, you would be my bud. You'd be like Kyle or Schrader or Kenny, all those guys. You'd be one of the guys. And he's one of the guys. Just like, damn, I wish I could I wish he's around when I was racing with him, because he was not only that, he's he was the guy, right? That just fit for the personalities that I love. Okay. And the type of people. But not only that, the dude was a hell of a race car driver, right? Smart individual. We talked about banking a little bit. He got on the bank board one time. We talked about that a little bit because my deal started the bank, being on the bank board for a decade. And we talked about chassis. We talked about setting the things down on the bump stops and doing all that stuff, and how the transition from where our chassis were to how, when he got going, to where his chassis ended up, and the things they were doing to the cars that they still do today. We talked about a lot of that stuff. Talked about a lot of things, man. Racing, banking, people, and only 30 minutes, but 30 minutes that I look back and I really do cherish, because I'm thinking, again, I thought, man, he's my dude. He's the guy he'd have been my buddy, and then when we come out, Katie's telling me about that his wife had the same effect on Katie, right? Just such a easy going, sweet, outgoing personality, just talking and talking and talking. Her and Katie, just like they hit it off, man, just talking about everything. But then come to find out, it seems like Greg's wife hit it off with everybody like that. You know what I'm saying? And then to lose him the way we lost him, you always, that stuff never gets easy, Ricky. We can go back in my racing career, and someday maybe we'll do that. We'll talk about in my career the guys that we lost, or during my tenure in NASCAR, right? From the
Yeah.
first one all through the last one. And they all stung. They all stung, man. They all stung. I mean,
Sadly,
yeah,
there were quite a few during
they
your
all
time, your
stung.
whole
They
run,
all,
you know?
they all stung very hard. Some of the guys I was close with, some of them I wasn't, right? And, Greg's deal, you know, I don't know. Everything's been written and said about it. There's nothing you can say, nothing you can do. Just a
Just
sad
moving forward,
situation.
like everybody's been saying, just be like Biff. That's the best
Yeah,
you can do.
just be like
Be like
Biff.
Biff.
That's exactly right.
So I
That's
will say, I thought
exactly
it was
right.
so cool. The RFK cars are all running at Daytona.
Yeah,
The numbers are all going to be in the style of his 16, like his 16 was for most of his career, and same with Colleague. Of course, they have number 16 now. They're going to run that
right,
number style.
right.
So it's so sad, but that they're going to honor him in some really cool ways, and he and his family and the folks on that plane are never going to be forgotten. And
That's right. That's
you
right.
know, so so, and I'm sure it'll be bittersweet. Obviously, it'll be sad, but at the same time, it's I think about how daggone sad it was when, like in '93, losing
Yeah,
Allen, losing Davey,
yeah.
but I think Rusty won that race at Bristol after Allen passed away a couple days prior, flying into Bristol.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think if I remember, pretty sure it was him that won the race. When he won the race and he spun that car around to do the Polish victory lap in the honor of Allen, I'll never forget that crowd at
Oh yeah,
Bristol. That
yeah,
roar of
yeah,
that crowd, I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it was sad, obviously, but
yeah.
daggone it was cool, and it was like, this is the right way to pay tribute,
Yeah.
and
And
so
and here's the deal, Ricky. The people in that crowd knew exactly. Every person in that crowd knew exactly what was going on at that moment, right? That goes back to what we were talking about before, making sure that our fans are connected. We're connected right now. Because I'm not sure today if something like that happened, if, maybe 50% of the fans would understand what's happening, right?
yeah,
That's the connections I'm talking about, guys. But
you're right.
that day, every single person in that grandstand knew what that was about. It was so
They,
cool.
I guarantee you, every person in that grandstand came in that day, regardless of who won the race. They wanted whoever won the race to do that. They
Do a
wanted to
Polish
see the
victory lap.
full
Yeah.
victory lap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the thing is, to the drivers, like Rusty knew it and did it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like, speaking for all you guys back then, regardless of who won, I
Yep.
bet you any of y'all would have spun around
Yep.
and done that.
Yes.
And so you knew every fan wanted that. And I'm telling you, that roar in that place when
Yeah.
he did that, that's
Yeah.
one of those things that I remember. The
Remember.
sad parts of that weekend. I mean, that
Yeah.
Thursday or Friday when we first got to the track, that's the saddest day I ever spent at a racetrack.
It was. It
But
was.
man, capped it off with that crowd coming to life at the end of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we have some in honor of Biff and everybody
It will
else
be.
that
Yeah. It
lost.
will be. It
Have
will
some
be.
cool moments. But we're excited to be back on Mast
Yeah.
Cast.
Yeah.
We're going to be
Yeah.
here pretty much every week, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I think I said it was. Um, but we're looking forward to it. We're on all the socials. Rick Mast at Ricky Mast. I've got some Mast Cast handles that I'm secured. I hadn't actually put them out there yet, but we'll get that going. We're excited to be with you, and
Yeah. Charlie's
yeah,
given us the opportunity uh, to do this on the Kenny Wallace Media platform, along with Mark and Matt's show, right? And we're gonna be doing some cross pollinating, Ricky. I'm now officially the fill-in for for the Mark Martin show, whenever he don't want to be there, and the fill-in, which amazingly enough is next Monday. Okay, already.
okay.
The official fill-in on the Herman Schrader show on Dirty Mo for those guys, and I think I've got to fill in for Herman on the 13th already. So I'm like, golly, guys. So, but
Well,
anyhow, this is.
you got to make sure you save some stories for Mast Cast
Well,
too.
yeah, believe me, dude, I've got plenty. It's just
I
like we're
know you
sitting
do.
down there, when they called me about doing when Kyle called me about doing the fireside chat. Well, the NASCAR people called, but anyhow, I was talking to the NASCAR lady, and I said, "Well, how long we're going to be up there?" She said, "Well, we do three segments. Maybe, you'll have, 10 to 20 minutes." I said, "Wendy," I said, "I could spend 10 to 20 minutes telling you how to make a tomato sandwich, dude." I said, "Good Lord, yeah, that's not enough time, right?" So, like, we've got, and I told the people when I got done with that story with Harry, I said, "Man, if there's a producer out here thinking about this, we could do a mini series just on Harry Gant stories, right? Just on his stories." And then I got to thinking, Hell, we could do miniseries on so many other people and so many stories we know about, right? So anyhow, we'll be covering a lot of that stuff as time goes on Mast Cast. It'll be
Yes, we
fun.
will. Yes, we will. So the plan is the Mark Martin show will be out on Mondays, I believe it is, and then Mast Cast will be hitting your feeds and hitting the YouTube on the Kenny Wallace channel every Wednesday. So I'm sure if things happen, we'll adjust as needed. No
Yeah.
problem. We'll try not
Yeah.
to run Dad into the ground here with him hosting or filling in on every show, in addition to this show. But I'm excited to be back and excited to have all y'all out there back with us. So, well, Dad, this is it, man. I guess we're back. So I guess same time next week.
Same time, same channel. What is it? Same bat time, same bat channel.
Same that channel. That's right. All right. He's Rick.
Toodaloo.
I'm Ricky. We'll see you next week.